Grand rising, beloveds, 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 love and unity. May this day be renewed, be restored, and be available to each and every one of us who are seeking it within all of life. What is the living truth? Now, we must understand that truth is a perception. Truth is a perception. Life is a perception. Beauty is a perception. Race is a perception. Everything that lives outside of you is a perception. Okay, because today, at this very moment, two people that came from the same constellation of life can have two different perceptions of what life is. One person can think their perception of life is worldly. So meaning that their perception of life is what they do in the world, having a job, having a business, having a family. And then another person's perception can be life is being responsible, being accepted, um, being being able to help people. But the only perception of life that is a living truth, like living, there's only one living truth. There's no other truth, but just this one thing. This is what Jesus said. I and my Father are one. There's no other truth of life but the living truth, the holy truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. And we have to understand why I say so help me God. I say so help me God because growing up, you are taught different perceptions of everything. You have a perception, which is indoctrination. Anything that has been indoctrinated into you, which means anything that you had to learn outside of how that gene swam up into your mother's womb. It's doing this on purpose. It's okay. Outside of how that gene swam up in your mother's womb, it is a perception to you. That is something that you learned based on somebody else's perception of life. You didn't learn that understanding because it was given onto you. I mean, you learned that perception, please forgive me, because it was given onto you. Anything that is given onto you is like in the Bible when it states, if you eat from the knowledge of that tree of good and evil, surely you will die by it. Okay, that means that you're taking somebody else's understanding and now it's being created in you a form of life. Okay, because you are life. You are the only route that life has to manifest itself through. So the living truth is that you are life. This is one of the best healing modalities that you can ever. This is a healing modality. Everything that we seek in life, because one thing that we all have endured is trauma. One thing that we all endure is pain. One thing that we all endure is hurt. See, these things, we all go through it because we have the very same chemical state of being as one body, as one existence, as one life. Okay, this is why we come from we all have the same body. We all have the same blood. We all have the same organs. We all have the same cells. All have the same tissues. And because we all have the same constellation, that means that we're all one in the same constellation. The only thing that makes it separated is your perception. It's your belief. So if your belief about life is different than another person's belief about life, that is what makes it different. That's the only thing that makes it different. But the living truth is just one in itself. And this is the greatest healing truth that you will ever, 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 ever be capable of acknowledging within your own self. Because I know even today, I ask God for healing. I ask God to heal the thoughts. I ask God to heal the pain. I go through these things every day. Why? Because someone in the same image and the same likeliness of me is going through that. And because they don't recognize the living truth, they just think that they're going through it alone. Like I thought that I was going through everything that I was going through alone for majority of all of my life. In the world, I was going through it alone because physically no one ever came and helped me. Physically, when I seeked help, I didn't get the help that I needed. But internally, where my life lives, remember the kingdom of heaven lives within. All of life lives within each and every one of us every day. And why I come on here every day is because this is something that helps us understand that when we understand this truth, we won't hurt one another. We won't damage one another. We won't make up these beliefs and indoctrinate people to believe things that don't ensure another person's walk with life. Because two different people based on their different perceptions, but coming from the same constellation, can have two totally different lives. And one person will believe that they are privileged because they had a totally different life from you. And the other person will be damaged because they had a totally different perception of life than the other one had. Perception is a weapon. It is a weapon that has caused duality. It has caused separation. It has divided us. Perception is one of the most deadliest weapons that we can not understand. See, God's knowledge is a living knowledge. God's truth is a living truth. And because you are life itself, you have to understand this knowledge. This is why God said, my people perish because of lack of this knowledge. And see, this knowledge is beautiful. This knowledge is not sinful. This knowledge is not deadly. This knowledge is not hurtful. This knowledge can heal. I mean, it can heal the masses. It can heal trauma that people have gone out there and started using drugs and started using medications and started becoming pill heads and drug users and alcoholics. This truth can heal the soul. It can heal the heart. It can heal the immunity. It can heal the body. It can heal the pain. It can heal the trauma. It can heal the abuse. It can heal those deep, deep, deep down secrets that you have never been able to share with anybody else because they are so, in your mind, they are so nasty and dirty and defiled and so stigmatized by other people that you didn't realize that holding them in has become a double-edged sword inside of you, which means that it has become death inside of you because you don't know what the living truth is. See, this truth is healing to our body, to our life, because you have to understand, first thing is, do you understand what life is? Have you ever been taught what life is? This is a question that you can ask if you know God. If you believe in God, you can ask God this question. What is life? What is life? This is something that many of us don't know. If you can get a different perception from another person about life, if you can get a different perception about what is life from anybody else outside of you, then you don't know what life is. Because life is just one thing, beloveds. In your mother's womb, it showed us what life was. Life was that gene that formed itself into you. That mind that God told you not to conform to the world and stay transformed and renewed in its mind, in God's mind, that is your life. And that truth right there determines everything. It determines your walk from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. It determines your walk from your bloodline, from the very first seed of your descendancy, from the very first root of your nature. It determines the beginning and it determines the ending of it. That one truth determines every human being's walk with life. It determines your health. It determines your mental health. It determines your physical health. It determines your emotional health. It determines your everything. Everything that you will ever have to do, go through, believe in, become, not become, seek, find, ask, whatever. This one truth, what is the living truth, determines everything about your existence. Okay? I didn't say life. You understanding what life is determines everything about your existence. So your existence is your bloodline. That bloodline is your lifeline. It's your legacy. Okay? The bloodline is your lifeline. In your mother's womb, we saw this. We saw the blood, which is spirit, which is existence, swim up into the gene. That gene, which is the mind, which is the DNA forming itself into the mind or into the memory, that will form that memory into the body, which is your life, your legacy, your walk into the existence that you came through from the constellation of life. So anybody who knows the story of Jesus, you know Jesus came from a different constellation. He came from a constellation where his life was already foretold. And we all come from a destiny, a constellation where our life has already been foretold. Why do we understand this, and why should we understand this? Because you know your DNA, and you also know that you come from your parents. This is biology. This is something that everybody in this humanity should know. You should know this. This is something that should not ever be excluded from who you are as a living nature. Why? Because, like myself, I was hurt very bad in life, and it did a lot of damage to me. And thank God that I was internal, that I wasn't capable of doing damage to other people like they did onto me. See, my damage came from other people not knowing this truth. See, if they had known this living truth, they could not have damaged me. And they would never have been damaged. And the people who damaged them would never have been damaged. And the people who damaged them would have never been damaged. Because just like that DNA, it's passed down to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. Okay? And this is what, if we want to say what love is, if we want to believe in love, if we want to believe that love is true, and I can tell you that love is just a perception as well. But if we still want to keep that perception, if we still want to keep that conformity, see, if you're going to use conformity, you're going to have to know the truth about using conformity and why conformity is so damaging to your life and to your bloodline, into your next child and the next child that they will have and the next child that they will have. You have to know the living truth. See, this living truth determines the way you are going to be treated, but not the way that you are going to be treated. It determines the way that you will live inside of this beautiful, beautiful existence that is guaranteed. When you come through that constellation, when you are chosen out of all those seeds in your mother's womb that God was capable of coming into that realm, they were capable of coming into the realm of earth. That means that every last one of those seeds could have been chosen, and obviously you and I were the ones chosen from that spirit realm, from existence itself. We were chosen. Okay, now why we were chosen, this is why we need to understand the living truth. Why we were chosen determines the DNA inside of us. Okay? As a human nature, it is determined by the DNA. But as a child of the Most High, as a seed of life, it's determined by existence. It's determined by the living God. Because some of us, we are descendants of a living God. Our bloodline goes back from the beginning of time as a living God, a seed of a living God, which means that in the beginning of the bloodline, in the very beginning of our bloodline, see, you got to understand it was just this one cell that colonized itself into bodies called life, which it means you and me today. We are the colonies of the body of life, which means that this one cell, like in our mother's womb, it's that one cell, which is your mother, okay? In your mother's womb, she's the one cell that colonizes all these trillions of cells that swim up in her stomach. Okay, it's the same, it's no different from the very first cell to seeing it in your mother's womb. And you get chosen from that one cell. It's always going to be this one cell. And the only thing that sets us apart, you know, what God says, his kingdom is set apart from the human kingdom. God's kingdom is set apart from the human kingdom. Why? Because God's kingdom is not human. God's kingdom is existence. Remember, in our mother's womb, our very gestation, we don't come from the human kingdom. We don't come from the human kingdom at all, but if you call it in that name, if you call it, and the word became flesh and made its dwelling, and now you are its begotten son. Now you are its memory. Now you are its DNA. Now you are a seed of life. Now you must embody that word. And a word inside of you is an existence. A word inside of you becomes life. This is what blood is. That's how you got here. Okay, this is how blood creates all of life. Okay, this is just biology. It's a truth. It's a living truth that no one can deny, that should be taught to you so that your walk with life should be capable of being favorable to you. Like my walk of life was not favorable to me. And I can just use one understanding. I can use all of them, but I can use one understanding. I'm a minority. And in the law of human belief or perception, a minority is not considered living. It's not considered living. So, and no one can dispute this fact. If you can dispute it, speak. Come on here and speak. This is truth. Because the truth is not, it's available to all of us, beloveds. You can find this truth in your own laws. This is why you need to understand the living truth. What is the living truth? And if any of you professionals out here are watching these videos, I would like you to respond. Any of you religious leaders and any of you professionals out there, respond. It's time to stand up for the truth. It's time to make sure that what you are doing is not harming anybody. It's time to make sure that everything that you are doing is the truth, the holy truth, and nothing but the truth, so help us God. Because you are here to protect and to serve. And that means that you must know the living truth as well. That means that your truth cannot be indoctrinated. That means that your truth cannot be something that cannot sustain this generation or the next generation or the next generation to come. That means that everything that you are doing this lifetime with your practice, it must ensure that the next generations will not be infected by it. Because if you know that blood is a lifeline, that you're not working with somebody's mind, you're working with somebody's existence. And do you know the living truth Because nothing that I ever learned in mental health, nothing that I ever learned in anything, when I went inside, I seeked help, offered me that. Offered me that truth, offered me that knowledge, offered me that existence. So you need to understand this as well. Why do you need to understand this as well? Because it affects everything that you do, affects someone's life and their walk with existence. And not just theirs, the next generations and the next generations and the next generations. Do you know that I watched a video yesterday with this lady stating that Black people should be extinct because they were poison. They were deadly weapons. Now, do you see the perception? But do you know why that lady stated that? And do you know why she had that perception in her mind? And what was the root of her having that perception? What made what she said right or wrong, and why? Why would nothing that we teach not be able to give us the root understanding of why that lady had that perception? She had two babies in her hand while she was stating this. Not only was she programming her children by those words, she had her two children in her hand stating that she hated Black people and that they should be extinct because they chemically were poison. But if she believed that, and if that is true, why? She had two babies in her hand speaking death upon somebody, literally speaking death, the words of death into not only her babies' minds, feeding her babies that chemical toxic poison, which means that they will now have that same program running in them. But she was also speaking that word against a race, a human race, and somebody's existence. Now, many people have had to have their children taken away from them for this very truth. For this very truth, many people have had to have their children taken away from them. People who have been born and their kids have drugs in their system. Well, that lady was a drug. She was a poison. She was a toxicity. She was a drug, just like a child being born with a chemical drug in their body. She was doing the same thing to babies living. See, there was no different form of alchemy going on in that situation. It was no different from a baby being born with a drug in his body than a parent having the same immunity as that drug, even more powerful than the drug, speaking against somebody else's life, speaking death against somebody else's life. And she was on social media spreading this. That video had over 100-something thousand views. And not only did it not come from her, it was pinned on somebody else's video. Somebody else had picked it up and now they had the view. So it had already spread it by first it coming from her and then somebody else pinning themselves to that video talking about how racism has not ended. Now he has the video. Can you imagine how many more babies, how many more minds, how many more bloodlines are going to be affected by that lady? And it's no different. Let me tell you, beloveds, professionals, life, existence, souls. Her perception is no different than the truth of somebody getting their baby taken away from them because they were born with drugs in their body. And this lady just produced an alchemy, which was a chemical spell, a chemical poison that was going to turn her children, those two beautiful little babies she had in her hand, into racism, into racism. Because you have to remember, how does how does every word, how does every belief, how does every perception that we learn or that we will learn in our life, how is it created? How is it created, beloveds? Do you know how everything is created when it comes to you and I? Do you? Have you ever been taught this truth? Because if you were taught this truth, beloveds, you would ensure that it existed. Your existence and your only right is life. So you would ensure this for all of life. You would ensure that existence lived inside of this beautiful, beautiful immunity. This beautiful immunity that never affected the existence or the life within anybody's wellspring of life, which is that DNA, that bloodline that is passed down, that is carried down, that affects our walk today into the day that we leave this body, that affects the next DNA that will grow into the next body of life. From that body of life that you didn't realize is the living truth, the holy truth, and nothing but the truth. But because the perceptions that we are taught by different knowledges. Remember, God told us, my people perish because of lack of my knowledge. See, God's knowledge is living. It can only do one thing because it's living. It can only do one thing. It can provide life. And remember, God said, don't conform this life to the world's knowledge. Stay transformed and renewed in my mind. Because in my mind, inside of you, your mind is governed by existence, which is the spirit, which is the energy body. And that energy body inside of you is the law of life. So do you understand this? And if you don't understand this, I am here. I wrote programs to help us understand this, but it is hard to get those programs in anything in which another knowledge is already there. But if this knowledge is not helping this generation at this present moment and ensuring that the next generation is like, if this knowledge was available, my walk with life, I would have not ever had to go to mental health. I would have never had to be punished. I would have never had to suffer, make bad choices in life, not because I made bad choices because I didn't do the right things. Because if you are taught a different perception of life that is not truthful, that is not a living truth, you're automatically going to make bad choices. It's automatic. Why is it automatic? It's just like in the Bible when God said, surely, he said, if you eat from the knowledge of that tree of good and evil, you're going to die. Why? Because, beloved, you're chemical. You're a chemical body. And because you're a chemical body, you must know the living truth, the holy truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. You must know it. There's no, you have to learn this on yourself. One day you'll grow into it. When it's your time, you'll be ready. No, it does not work like that, beloveds. Life does not work like that. Life works under one authority, the same one that we all came through in our mother's womb. And this is why it has to be a living truth. It has to be a living truth. Why? Because if it's not, what happens to you today, it happens to everyone with that same perception of life. Everyone with that one perception of life, they are affected by it. And it's just like hurt people hurting hurt people. But what is the root to hurt? Do you understand the root to hurt? Before you can heal anybody that's hurt, before you can heal anybody that's traumatized, because you cannot heal them. Okay? You cannot heal anyone. This is something that I've had to understand. There was no healing for me until the truth became my right to life. It's like it's a passage to life. Like when you go and get baptized, that's kind of like a passage into life. Well, no, truth is our passage into existence. It's our walk back into the living God. It's our walk back into the living body. And what it does while you're walking there, it destroys Sodom and Gomorrah. The old things must pass away, beloveds. It rises you like Jesus rose, and the world shook. It rose you up out of all the death. Okay, you got to understand those biblical stories are not physical. We cannot understand them on the level of man. We must understand them on the level of eternity, immortality, and mortality, which means as a law, as spirit, as energy, as chemical, and as a mind, which is a memory, which we call DNA. Unless we understand life in the living truth, every generation that is born will be infected. And do you understand what infected means? Like what you believe diseases are, what you believe illness is, what you believe sickness is, that type of infection. So for me, I was infected with pain. And this pain debilitated me for 41 years. I was debilitated. Do you understand what debilitated? When you are debilitated, beloveds, you cannot prosper in life. And when you are debilitated, it's not about prospering in life. You cannot mature as a gene. See, a gene has to mature. It has to mature, beloveds. And I'm like, right now, I'm going to cry. Because I start remembering the damage that was given on to me by, but that's between, I give that over to you, Lord. I give it all over to you. Thank you for the ability to be a beautiful messenger of your existence and of your knowledge and of your living truth. We must know the truth about life before we can know the truth about history, about biology, not biology, please forgive me, about math, about English, about reading. We must know the truth about our own biology, about our own life, about our own body, about our own mind, about our own existence before we can go and learn anybody else's knowledge. We have to know our own knowledge. We got to know our own truth. Because without that, it's not only do you not be able to evolve yourself as a gene, because you are a gene, and that gene is a bloodline. It's a wellspring. It determines your health. It determines your mental health. It determines everything that will happen to you in your walk within this body. And because you were born inside of this body, because all of life is living in this body, it also determines what happens to you outside of the body. And how do we know this to be true? All we have to do is understand our parents' struggles. And if they didn't heal them, they get passed down to us. Okay, these are facts, these are truths. But there's a root to everything. And there's only but one root. There's not these trillions and trillions and trillions of knowledges, perceptions, beliefs. It's just one. And this one truth can ensure that, as myself, speaking on my own journey, being a minority, being a Black person, being put under the directive of that immunity, because that immunity is a spell. And it just does not just affect one of us. It affects all of us, because a word is a spell. And the word became flesh. How does the word become flesh? How does the word become flesh? I need some of you pastors to answer this question. Or the living God will answer for all of you guys by showing you that you're all frauds, you're all scammers, you're all schemers, and you have not been helping these children. I was one of those children. My mom was one of those children. Her mother was one of those children. And you guys have been given the authority and the rulership over these lives. So that means that if you guys have the authority and the rulership over these lives, then I should have not ever had to endure anything. Because your practices should be dealing with life. Your practices should be dealing with life, because that's what I am. That's what every child is, their life. And this is a proven fact. This is not something that is not factual. This is something that you don't have to scientifically study or go and test anybody to get this understanding, or to make it a law, or to make it a belief, or to make it a perception, or to make it an indoctrination. This is something that is factual. This is a living truth. And this is something that we all should have the authority. It's a right. It's a passage. It's a right to life. It's our passage into this cellular body and evolving it. Because if our blood does not evolve, that means that it's like God saying, what can I add on to a day of your lifespan? If you worry, what can I add on a day to your lifespan if you worry? Nothing. That means every day that I am taught wrong, that I don't understand my living knowledge, that I haven't been assured my passage, my right to life. Every day my life is being chemically genocided. Every day my life is not ever being added on to me. It's not ever going to evolve. And inside of me, that's not only death, it's poor health, it's poor mental health, it's everything that I can prove that I had to endure my whole walk with life for 41 years until the living God, which is my own maturity, awakened in me. And it started walking in my image and in my likeness, assuring that I can break that curse that I was under, because the curses of the knowledge that we have had to be taught inside of this chemical body, generations upon generations upon generations upon generations. And see, you don't realize that our walk inside of this evolution is only 3 generations. And see, this is something that can be proven. This is something that is factual. But everything that I am taught in the world is not, and it can never be proven. How do I know this? Because you have to study it. See, you don't have to study life. Life proved this to you. That's how we got here. It's a proven fact. It's a living truth. You don't have to study life. But what you indoctrinate us into, what you force us to understand about ourselves, you have to study that. Okay? See, what you don't understand is that this walk that we don't get to evolve within. In our 4th generation, some of us, if we haven't healed, if we haven't done the work, we perish. Okay? You don't understand what perish is inside of a chemical body, inside of a gene, a DNA. But I do, because I'm an internal being. I'm a living truth. I'm a living existence. And my DNA walked me into this knowledge for such a time as this, the 4th generation of that seed of life. For that seed of life, I am. And the ones who came before me for that seed of life, they were. Just like every DNA is the same thing, but on a human level, not on a level of life. And how do I know this? All I have to do is just understand myself being a minority and understand the law of that word inside of your legal system. And I don't exist. I don't have life. I don't have existence. So does that make any sense to me? This is part of my pain. Part of my pain is knowing this. All of my fear is being under the authority and the rulership of this. My whole life of fear is because of that rulership and that authority and that law that was written over my life and my existence. Somebody telling me that I did not have a right to my life and my existence. And that's all that I am. That's all that I will ever be. That's all that I can be. And knowing this truth would destroy me. Generations upon generations upon generations. Why? Because I am a DNA. Because I am a bloodline. Because I am a chemical body. And never being given that right. Why did I never be given that right? Because I was lied. I was forced. I was killed. I was destroyed. I was stolen from. And I chemically, based on the fear, the lies, and the knowledge, was altered, was spelled, and was denied my right, not only to life, but to truth, but to health, but to well-being, and to my own sustainability of life. And how do I know this to be true? Well, I'm blood, which makes me energy. It makes me a law. Okay? I'm a gene, which makes me life itself in the living body, not in the flesh, not in the legal term, but in the factual living term of its own existence. Okay, and in this generation of my existence, in all of the existences and all of the lives that you never allowed this truth to be one in, you determined their end time prophecy for them, which means that you are held responsible for what you did. You're held responsible for what you did. Now I'm here based upon the truth to allow the people that has had to walk this walk of life to heal, to have a chance to not have to perish because of your disrespect, your responsibility to not do the right things, your responsibility to lie, your responsibility to spell, your responsibility to alter, your responsibility to ensure exactly what you said you were doing for us, that we would be given that what you said you were doing for us, but it just didn't happen that way. But I am here for that very right to give those lives. This immunity, this healing, that they may be able to rise from this parish that you created in their name and their likeness and in their image and in their lives and in their existences and in their bloodlines. I'm here to make it right. Because see, God is not a killer, a stealer, and a destroyer. God is a truth. And see, what truth does is truth makes things right. Truth brings balance back to parish, back to justice, back to lives, back to the existence that those lives must be under the authority of in order to ensure that in that fourth generation, God's kingdom could rise up out of that valley of the shadow of death. Because this is all of it's everyone's. It's not just mine. It's just not just the majorities or the minorities. It's not just his or hers or theys or we's or us, or it's one. It's one law. It's one existence. It's one body. It's one seed. It's one bloodline. And it's only one thing that's going to determine this for all of us, and that is the truth. And if we don't set things right, because that's how evolution does not perish, you're all held accountable for what you have done. And how do we know this to be true, beloveds? Because we know we are chemical. We know that we are law because we are blood, we're energy. And we know that we are a lifeline because we are a gene. We know this to be the truth. No one can dispute this fact but a liar. But the very source of nature that is going to perish, his whole existence in his inequity, which means in his own sin, in its own sin. In his own knowledge, in his own transgressions. You created that. You are going to be the one that determines that. And if you don't give these beautiful lost souls that have never been given a chance and an opportunity what they deserve, just think what is to come from what you have done to ensure this. You ensured this. We didn't ensure this. See, because the living truth will prove this to you and everybody. That's what blood is. That's what that gene is. And that's what every chemical body is made in the image and the likeness of. There's no one excluded from that. No one. Not you, not the billionaires, not the millionaires, not the Pope John Hall, not Mother Teresa, not Mother Mary, not Jesus, not the people playing gods over life, not even the living God is excluded from this knowledge. That's why that seed is a living God. And everything that conforms itself outside of that truth, that knowledge, is the valley of the shadow of death. No one can dispute this fact but death itself. Because see, death can't create life. Death has no knowledge of life. Death has no existence living in him that can produce that authority and that existence and that walk and that body and that truth, that it may come and set those free from the bondage of your DNA, of your knowledge, of your inequities. Because see, you had to take somebody else's life in order to take that world into that valley of the shadow of death. See, death don't become death without taking lives to make it possible. Sickness don't become sickness without making people sick to make it possible. Trauma don't make trauma unless it's trauma and it turns other people into that same trauma. This is what an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth is, beloveds. This is a living truth that no one can dispute. How do we know this to be the truth? Your chemical, beloveds, your blood. That's how everything is created. Chemically, you have to create that existence for it to become a living truth, even a lie. But it has to come through life in order to be given that authority. And this is why God said, you don't call me in no other name. The minute you call me into another name, I will have to become that antibody, that antichrist. I will have to use my life and my existence to become that adversary. And once I become that adversary, because I'm a law, I will automatically infect everybody with its death. Because we only playing with two powers inside of this kingdom, and that's life and death. The power of life and death. There's no other power. There's no power of a judge. There's no power of a ruler. There's no power of an authority. There's no power of anything. It's just life and death. In order for man to have power, he has to control death. But in order for life to have power, he has to control existence. And the one thing about existence is that existence is never going to use any other directive but life to ensure that kingdom. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done as in heaven, so on earth. So the one will save us. Okay, one will save us, but the other one is automatically going to perish everything. But the one who inherits the earth. And just like all times, every evolution, every existence, that one seed is going to produce a new kingdom of life based on one thing, that's life. What we are going through is inevitable, beloveds. It's inevitable. It's already here. There's no stopping it but by the truth. And see, the truth is there are a lot of innocent lives, souls, bodies, and existences that never was given this opportunity to evolve within this kingdom because somebody played rulership and ownership over it. And you owe for those lives and that existence that you stole. Remember, this living God said, I am going to come and take back. Like a thief in the night, I'm coming and I'm taking back everything that is mine. That's what existence does in the end time prophecy. And see, you guys can't understand this because your prophecy is false. Your prophecy is death. Every lifetime, that's what you have ensured inside of that bloodline for every one of your human knowledges that you created in your image and in your likeness and in your DNA from your right to conform these beautiful, beautiful lives and existences into your knowledge, into your understanding, into your doctrine. And the doctrine that you created for them, life did not exist in there. And I know this because I am a minority. I know this to be true. And then I go into your legalese, into your legal system, and I understand what a minority is, and I don't have a life. It was not created, which means that you are the creator of death. To tell a life, a living truth, a living body, a living existence in your own legal system that they are not life, it means that you are the creator of death. You see, one thing you cannot do is you cannot be chosen by life inside of your DNA. The only thing that you will ever be able to produce, even in your knowledge, in your world, in your existence, in your truth, is death. And in the end time prophecy, everybody who followed you as their God, everybody who believed in you as their God is going to perish by your inequities, by your sins, by your knowledge, because you altered their bloodline. You denied their right to never rise from that end time prophecy. So they're all going to fall by your hands, by your knowledge, just because you exist right now. And see, you can make it right. You can make it right. I had to make myself right when I was never wrong. I had to heal myself when I should have never should have had to heal. I had to spend the last 13 years of my life going through another generation of hell so that I can fulfill the destiny of that very seed that so many people never got the chance to even know existed inside of them, never believed was even present, was even worthy of them having, was afraid that somebody was going to kill them and they died anyways if they ever stood up for it. You didn't die because of a rulership and authority. You died because you gave your right over to that valley of the shadow of death. You died because you gave power to death. You believed. I believed in everything that was taught to me. I had respect for everybody in my life who taught me. And I believed everything that I was ever told in my life. Why? Because your knowledge teaches me that. And not only does it teach me that, it punishes me when I did it. So it's nothing ever going to come out of what you have added on to us, have given on to us. And how do I know this to be true? I'm chemical. I'm a law. I'm existence. And my only right in that existence is life. That is the only walk I will ever have. That is the only evolution I will ever be given. And that is the only existence that I will ever have dominion over. And yet I'm struggling. I'm pleading, I'm begging, I'm praying. I'm healing. Why? Why, Lord? Please deliver this truth unto itself in all things, Lord, that it may not return back void for those who are ready, for those who are willing, and for those who are not worthy to allow living kingdoms and living bodies to perish because of pure ignorance and people who chose to do what they did unto other people. They made conscious choices to do that. They knew better, but they didn't do better. And that's okay. I forgive you. But does your soul? You have to remember that your soul is an eye for an eye. Now, I will forgive you. I'm not worried about what's going to happen to me. I never worry about what's going to happen to me. It's already been done unto me. It's already been done unto me, generations upon generations upon generations. How do I know this to be true? I was born into it. It just didn't make itself. Nothing makes itself. Everything comes from that bloodline. So I've already endured it. I've already been through it. That's why it is nothing for me to know that I will serve that living God. I will uplift that truth. And I will never, ever, ever deny anybody's right to life. Because the minute that I ever do that against anybody's will, I am an antibody and an antichrist. I am not only that, I am the end time prophecy. And that law, that soul that you don't understand, you inside of this kingdom right now. I'm inside of this kingdom right now. We all inside of this kingdom right now. And it doesn't hold us accountable to our money, to our governments, to our religions, to our books, to our lives, to our businesses, to our popularity, to our likes. It holds us accountable by that bloodline, by the knowledge that we created inside of it, by the lives that we did not evolve inside of it, and by the bodies that we denied that right to, that existence, that it born in this image and in this likeness, that every last one of them may have life and all of its abundance. And it knows you as well as it knows all those bodies who had to return back like myself. I'm a return of that DNA. I'm a return of that walk of life that was not given unto me. I'm a return of that knowledge that was rejected from me. I'm a return of that pain, that shame, that guilt, that enslavement, that death that destroyed me lifetimes upon lifetimes. I'm a return of everything that was stolen, killed, and destroyed inside of that existence, as well as you are. And they're all held equally yoked to that same law. Whether you broke it, whether you wrote over it, whether you denied it from other people, at the end of our days, in that end time prophecy, that Akashic record has already been fulfilled. And just remember who it is going to use to ensure it. The very ones who denied it. If you cannot produce life, everything that you do will be walking your destiny to that end time prophecy. Technology is proving this to you, beloveds. Everything that you create in your image and your likeness is proven to you that you are extincting your own prophecy to life. See, death can never create anything living. That's why you have a whole artificial intelligence, your ruler of life, your breath of life, your body of existence. It tells its own story, beloveds. If life was talking to you right now, trying to tell you how to make it right, you will steal that knowledge and power more death with it instead of doing the right thing and lifting up the lives in which it came back for. Generation upon generation upon generation, so that it can fulfill the destiny, the prophecy of life, so that they may not perish because of you. You can't create nothing but death. I apologize for this truth, but it's just the truth. And this is why Jesus said it will set you free. Because you cannot save life. If you understand that all of life is living and everything that you create is death, how do you embody it? How do you ever have a mind that will ever produce it? How do you ever have a seed that will ever grow that body into existence? You will never. Though I may have to walk in the valley of the shadow of death. You are death. Nothing you can ever do will ever create anything for us. You have proven this generations upon generations upon generations, lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes. You are death. And no one deserves your end time prophecy but you. You made that conscious choice. Choose on this day who you are going to serve. And you chose it. Every time somebody dies, you prove to life and all of existence that you are that embodiment. Every time somebody gets sick, you prove to this existence you are the creator of that existence. Every time someone can be healed and they don't have a knowledge to understand how to heal themselves, you prove that you have refused them of that existence. Because truth is living. And it's just one of it in itself. And that it has not been written in any of your knowledge already proves who you are to yourself. And no one needs to understand this, beloveds. Existence already knows this. This is why he said, who knows the heart is wicked and the mind is deceitful? I do. You came into my constellation. You're living in my living body. I am your living God. I direct your ways. And yet, you took that beautiful covenant, that beautiful living truth, that beautiful living body, and you killed, stealed, and destroyed it in your knowledge. And if all your knowledge is your DNA and your mind and your chemical body, it proves you are death. We get so many chances within that 3 generation of our walk in immortality, mortality, and eternity. And when before it returns back onto itself, which it is already here, many, many, many of these beautiful, beautiful ascensions will be born to ensure before that perish comes that those souls who never deserved to walk in your knowledge, in your DNA, and in your existence by the hands of which you fed them. It's time to do the right thing because it's just what should be done. My whole life, that's all I was ever taught in your schools and your knowledge, to do the right things. But the right things was never done unto me. Never, ever, ever was it ever done unto me. I spent my whole life pleading, begging, and praying for God to save me. To save me from what? I'm a living body, I'm a living kingdom, I'm a living existence. Why was I crying? Why was I asking? Why was I pleading? Why was I begging for something that I already am? Because I didn't know it. And why did I not know it, beloved? Why did I not know this beautiful truth that has took the last 13 years of its beautiful living body in this beautiful living kingdom, in this beautiful existence, to sow back into me what you should have been doing since the day I got out of my mother's womb. And the day that she came out of her mother's womb. And the day that she came out of her mother's womb. Why didn't you do that? Because it does not exist in you. It only exists in the living God. Life. And in that constellation of that existence. Because we do the things in which we are. That's what DNA is. That's how every last one of us got here. That's how everything that we govern ourselves according to was made. And when you can deny a living right and a living body their right to understand that they even exist, save us, Lord, from the hands that have been feeding us since the beginning of our walk in that world and no longer life and no longer existence and no longer living truth, that we may have life in everything that you created us in your image and your likeness to just have, because it's the right thing. It's the only thing for the evolution of a gene, of energy, and of a chemical body to do, to ensure that everyone has a fair chance to wellness, to well-being, and to the sustainability of that existence. Not because we want to be rich, famous, popular, loved, like millionaires, billionaires, trillionaires, but because we deserve that existence, because it is our right to life, and because we were chosen in that constellation, we should have been able to enjoy it every lifetime. And we did it not because we did anything wrong, not because we made bad choices, not because we were evil and wicked or because we were toxic, like that lady said, but because what you fed us made us that way. No one has told you this on this day or any other day. I forgive you. But that's your soul. That's your existence. That's that life that you stole from itself and everybody else that had that same right that you had. And you made a conscious choice to say, fuck you. I am God. Bitch. Niggas. Whatever you want to call it. Whatever you have, call it in your image, in your name, and create it in your doctrines, in your laws, in your knowledges, and in your DNAs, and in your existence. I'm just using your words, your history. It all proves this to me. And I'm walking in it right now. I'm speaking it right now. I was born into it right now. In this present moment, it exists. It's living. This is the living truth. And until you know the root of it, beloveds, you don't heal nobody. You don't have no authority and rulership over nobody until you know life. Because life does not rule and have authority over anything living. I just am. And my only right is to ensure that thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so on earth. This is what blood and the gene is all about. And yet you know more about math, science, spelling, English, and history than you know about your own existence, your own life, and how it was already written into you. That very living truth could have ensured me on this day that I would not have to be testifying this truth to save lives from perishing. But life would have been able to just walk into the evolution of itself, because that is what it produced in everybody that existed. And some people hate this about me. You hate this about me. Why? Isn't this what we all are? How could you hate life? How could you hate existence? How could you hate truth? And it gave you the opportunity to be here. And when I hear those words coming from anybody, this is how sickness is created. That very word that exists in somebody's heart, that can alchemize in somebody's existence, that can hate somebody for honor and life, and that's all they are, that can hate somebody for being the truth of life, and that's all they are, that can hate somebody for being the existence, and that's all they are. They were granted the right to come into this kingdom by that fabric. And you would hate it, you would kill it, you would distill it, and you would destroy it, and you would deny it its right. Beloved, don't you know that you are the creator of that? Don't you know that you are the reason why everybody dies? You are the reason why everybody gets sick. You are the reason why we have had to endure treachery, generations upon generations upon generations, fighting battles that never should have had to be fight, waging war against what? Giving bodies for material death, ruling external shit, not realizing that in order to rule something outside of you, you have to use living lives, living bodies, people's existence. And you could have been creating an evolution for that life and that existence that could have been way greater than a war, than death, than hate, than sickness, than sin. Come on, beloveds. This is a living truth we were privileged to become the embodiment of. And you got people hating it when it returns back onto you to set you free, to help heal you, to help you understand what is to come and why this is happening and why it has happened. And while you have gone through the things you have gone through, and you will still choose to perish with death, instead of heal and rise, that living kingdom out of that valley of the shadow of death that can never ever produce anything for you, and the lives that will ever come through that constellation until it is perished by its own sins, which is its own inequities. When you could have freed every last one of them from that bondage that they all bondaged their bloodlines in, because they trusted you and believed in you and thought you were worthy. But the only thing worthy and trustworthy is life, the living truth, the living body and the living kingdom and the living God. Because under that authority, beloveds, we are eternity, immortality, and mortality. And we don't have to endure warfare, evil, wicked schemes, trauma, pain, injustice, fear, racism, hate, because that kingdom, which is that bloodline, that existence, can only do one thing, and that is create life. And the only thing that life can do is evolve that existence. And when you don't even know that your cell is existence and it ain't never evolved in its own truth, it tells its own story. His story has been lying to us. No one has told you this on this day or any other day, beloveds, love and unity. And the living God loves us so much, beloveds, that it doesn't just perish us. It tries to come and make things right for us before it does all of that. The story of Lot, every biblical story proved this to us. And beloveds, age proves this to us. That we age proves this to us. Everything that we call time and aging and sickness and sin, it proves us this understanding. And yet in the world, it's got a whole different knowledge to this understanding. But in the truth, because we chemical, it shows us our walk. It shows us our evolution, our digression. It shows us our ascension. It shows us what we have done and what we haven't done. What we have evolved and we have not evolved. But the one thing that we have never evolved is life. How do I know this to be true? I'm a minority. And in the world's laws and in humans' laws, I'm written in their laws as Mula and not life. Which means that I don't exist in their laws, in their humanity, in their existence. So they would kill off the living God. They would kill off existence. And they would kill off the evolution of existence to keep creating death. This is a living truth that nobody can deny. And how do I know this again? Because chemically, we have to create it. That's what blood, that's our existence. That's how we create everything. So you are the creator. I am. who I am. You are who you are if you conform yourself to that world's knowledge. And that's an inequity inside of this living knowledge that God said, my people perish because they refuse this knowledge. And this knowledge is the truth. And this truth sets you free, beloveds. It sets you free from perish. Because you're going to die regardless. They wrote it. They wrote everybody out of the book of life, beloveds. So you're going to die. That's inevitable. All of humans is going to continue to die and die and die and die. But in that fourth generation, you're going to perish. My people perish because they rejected my knowledge, and I rejected that gene from returning back to my existence, generation upon generation. That's the only thing that gives us life. Your gene represents your walk, okay, through the Trinity of life. And in that Trinity of life, not in the world you got time. But in this body, you only got 3 generations, beloveds. And in those 3 generations, we are all given the opportunity to master eternity, immortality, and mortality, which means become a living God. To heal, to do right by life in all of its existence, to repent, to ensure that generations to come, that when that end time prophecy came, they would all be chosen. They would all rise with that soul. And the soul is only one thing. I came so that you may have life. But if your DNA got death written in it because of your walk with death, though I may have to walk in the valley of the shadow of death, how does life choose you? How can life choose you? And you can't understand that memory cell, that breath that you don't believe right now, is existing for all of us. You can alter a person's mind by conforming it. You can alter a person's bloodline by inoculating it. But that breath of life is what you cannot ever destroy. And that breath of life is what carries the memory of our walk. It's not your DNA. It's not your mind. It's not conforming your mind. It's not inoculating your bloodline. It is the existence that has to walk in that valley of the shadow of death and see generations upon generations upon generations of its existence being denied. And it sees through its eyes, through you. Although it may not have common sense, because it's not a common sense, it's not a reality, it's an existence. It saw and remembers everything that you did upon this earth. And it's going to hold you all accountable for what you've done, including myself. If I did right by life, I'll carry that seed of life. If I denied life or killed, steal, and destroyed life, I'll carry that seed of death, though I may have to walk to the valley of the shadow of death. And you'll be rulers and authorities over it. So all you rulers and authorities, why do you think you were given that power? Because you stole it. And because you stole it, you have to exist as it. And why do you exist as it? Because you are the ones who are going to fulfill that end time prophecy. You are You and your descendancies have always been fulfilling that prophecy. Every time somebody dies, you are fulfilling that prophecy. Every time somebody gets sick, you are fulfilling that prophecy. This is how life walks itself through that Trinity and how it returns back onto itself so that life can become the new earth or the beginning again, because it's forevermore, it's eternal. Only humans have a beginning and an ending, but the living God does not. Once he returns back onto himself in that fourth generation, after he's watched his whole existence walk through treachery, and just remembers, I am, it holds its own self accountable. And how does it do this? You DNA, I'm DNA, we all DNA. That's where our life exists, beloveds. It don't exist in the paper, in the book, in the money, in your legacy of the world. It exists in your walk inside of that bloodline, in that bloodline's existence. And if you never sowed a seed, this is what Jesus said, give Caesar back what is Caesar's. I bet you ain't never paid a day into my Father's kingdom. How do I know this? I don't exist in that world. Only in life and only in existence do I exist. So who has been ruling me? If I don't exist in your world, but I only exist in life, who am I? That makes me the living God, existence. And it makes you deaf, because life would have made sure I exist in the world, in a reality, in anything that it created, if it was that God. It would have ensured it for all of life. Have an amazing day, beloveds, and I forgive you. I'm not mad. Oh, it's okay. I'm okay with this. You gave it on to me. I accept it. But there's life. There's existence. I believe it wouldn't accept this for me. But because you offered it to me, I accept. Because you forced it onto me, I had to accept. And I'm okay with it. Is this where I should be? Is this where I want to be? No, it's not. But it is what it is. But I know there's better. I know I'm worthier. And I know that's the becoming of who I am. Because that's my existence. That's my life. And I am the creator of it. Because I acknowledge it. I know my mind created it. I know my body produces it. Or I would not know the truth. I would be creating the same thing that was created against me. Have an amazing day, beloveds. And thank you again. Thank you for everything.